Today, we're diving into something pretty fascinating. We're looking at why a specific group of believers is turning to a biblical text that's nearly 2,000 years old to figure out how to navigate the world we live in right now. Let's get into it.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? I mean, with all the social unrest, the personal uncertainty we all feel, what is it about an ancient command that makes it feel so relevant to some people today? We're going to unpack their perspective, looking at it directly through their own words.
You can just feel the urgency in that statement. For the speaker, this isn't just some abstract idea. It's a deeply felt need, a direct response to the world they see around them, one that they believe demands action. So, where did this renewed focus come from? Well, the conversation really got started after a period of reflection. The death of a public figure, Ravi Zacharias, combined with a personal crisis of confidence, really pushed the speaker to search for a much stronger foundation in their faith. You know, they're seeing their own church parking lot fill up again, and for them, that's a real, tangible sign that something is happening. They don't see it as just a temporary trend. They see it as a spiritual movement, and they feel a real responsibility to help it grow. And at the very heart of all this is one specific passage, the Great Commission. Now, this is believed to be Jesus' final instruction to his followers after the resurrection, so you can see why they view it as this incredibly important, direct set of orders. All right, to really get their approach, we have to start where they start. It all comes down to this one core concept: authority. This is the line that kicks the whole thing off. Jesus says this right at the beginning of the passage, and they really emphasize that this isn't just a claim. It's a declaration of absolute, total authority over everything, the physical world and the spiritual world given to him by God. For them, this justifies everything that comes next. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, because they make a sharp distinction. They see worldly power, the force behind all the conflict and division, as something held by an enemy. But authority is totally different. They see it as this higher divine right that's given to believers through Jesus, which they believe can actually overcome that worldly power. So, once that authority is established, we get to the main event. This isn't a suggestion, it's a direct command. Go and make disciples. But what exactly is a disciple? In their view, it's not just someone who converts. No, it's much more. It's someone who becomes a dedicated, lifelong apprentice, a student who's fully committed to learning and living out the teachings of Jesus. And they don't see this as just one instruction. They break it down into a 5-part process. It all starts with the call to go, be active. The main goal, make disciples. And the scope is huge, of all nations. Then, that mission is solidified through 2 key actions: baptizing them as a public sign, and then, most importantly, teaching them to follow everything Jesus commanded. And here's a really interesting personal aside from their discussion. For one of the speakers who'd always kind of struggled with the idea of the Trinity, this passage was a huge moment of clarity. For them, hearing Jesus himself, named the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, all together, is the clearest, most direct confirmation of that core belief anywhere in the New Testament. So if the main command is to teach, the next obvious question is, teach what exactly? And this is where the command becomes a practical blueprint for how to live. This isn't some abstract list of rules. They point to very specific, tangible teachings right from the Gospels. Things like loving your enemies, showing mercy, practicing the golden rule, forgiving people over and over, caring for the most vulnerable, and even using sincere prayer as a real tool to manage anxiety. And all this leads to a moment of personal decision. The speaker kind of confronts his own reluctance, right? He realizes that if he's going to be a real disciple, he has to be willing to talk about his faith, even if it means being mocked or misunderstood. It's this call to go from just believing something privately to actually acting on it publicly. So, how does all of this actually translate from an old text into a modern way of living? This last part really connects all the dots. On a really personal level, the application is super direct. The speaker talks about his own experience. When he tries to handle all the pressure by himself, his anxiety just skyrockets. But when he stops and actually prays, he says this sense of calm and clarity just takes over. So for him, faith becomes this really practical tool for his mental and emotional health. And this slide really captures their big picture vision. They argue that trying to fix society with worldly tools, like passing new laws or arguing on social media, is like rearranging the deck chairs on a sinking ship. It just creates more division. So instead, their mission is to change the age by building an ark, basically inviting people out of all that chaos and into the safety of faith.
And that quote right there, it just perfectly sums up their entire argument. It completely reframes their purpose. It's not about politics, it's not about social reform, it's a spiritual mission, focused on something they see as eternal, not just temporary fixes.
And so this leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The speakers truly believe that by changing individuals from the inside out, they can actually help heal the divisions in the world around them. And that raises a really fascinating question about the true relationship between our private beliefs and our public impact.